It's finally here after so many delays and Nintendo being silent for so long. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has finally dropped, and honestly, I gotta say, this game basically saved Nintendo Switch users by the balls. You know, if you were to tell me 10 years ago that the future of consoles relied on the amount of games that consoles have, I would think you're crazy. 10 years later, I don't think that at all. There's been this big meme that consoles nowadays don't have any games, which is, it's kind of true. I mean, the Xbox has no games. The PlayStation 5 only has 2 or 3 noteworthy games, but isn't worth me spending an arm and a leg to get one. And then you got the Nintendo Switch. Back when this thing dropped years ago, it was the most talked about thing ever. There was a new Super Smash Bros. You could play, some good old Mario Kart you could play with the fam, and there was even a new Top Dog Mario game. But most importantly, there was a new Legend of Zelda game. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And if you actually have played the game, you know it was the top 3 best games that the Switch had to offer. Now, I was never really big on Zelda growing up, and I'm still kinda not, but man, playing Breath of the Wild was the most fun I had playing on that console. Breath of the Wild is a Zelda game that took a huge leap from the previous Zelda games, and essentially having a more stylized look, and it being an open world sandbox game, which if you know your boy is the top 5 things I like within a game. It's basically Grand Theft Auto but Zelda-like, and you don't have a shotgun killing innocent people and breaking the law. To really sum this up, there was a lot of reasons of why this game got so much attention and is still popular to this day. Breath of the Wild introduced a massive open world environment and allowed players to explore and discover at their own pace. This gave players a greater sense of freedom and autonomy, which was refreshing change from the more linear gameplay of previous Zelda titles. The game's environment was interactive in a way that the previous games had not been. Players could climb and scale almost any surface, interact with wildlife, and even use the environment to solve puzzles and defeat enemies. The game's art style and graphics were praised by fans and critics alike for its beauty and attention to detail. The game's art style gave it a unique look and stood out from other games on the market. And finally, the game's emphasis on exploring. Breath of the Wild placed a strong emphasis on exploration, rewarding players for discovering new areas and finding hidden secrets. The game gave players a sense of discovery and adventure that was missing from many of the other previous games at the time. Overall, Breath of the Wild was a fresh take on the classic Zelda formula, incorporating new elements while still retaining the core mechanics that made the franchise so beloved in the first place. Its innovative open-world gameplay, non-linear progression, interactive environment, beautiful graphics, and emphasis on exploration all contributed to its massive popularity. Now, this game dropped in March of 2017, so it's been around 6 years later that we finally get this much needed sequel. And I'm saying much needed because, let's face it, Nintendo Switch hasn't had any noteworthy games in a while now. When the Switch first dropped, it got the whole shebang of new great games, and things went quiet for a bit until 2020 happened, where people were stuck in their houses and got bored, and it was like if God had answered our prayers to save us from that boredom, Animal Crossing dropped, and it just basically saved everyone's mental state. I mean, there's only so many times you can play Smash or Mario Odyssey before things start to get a little loopy. And here we are in 2023 with this new game finally out, and I can say it's pretty good. Yeah, I know this game has been through a lot of attention and controversy before it even released to the public. The game dropped that teaser trailer that got everyone happy, seeing how many people wanted a sequel to the Breath of the Wild. Then after the teaser drop, things were kind of quiet on Nintendo's end on any information based around this game, which kind of made people a bit tense. If you know anything about gamers that are waiting for a game that they have been wanting for a while now, you know they ain't playing. I mean, rest in peace to people who were psyched for Cyberpunk 2077. That game did not end well for players. Then there was the delay in the development, which basically ticked off a lot of people. Not to mention there was not a lot of information given out about the game until later around the time the official trailer was released. Not to mention that Tears of the Kingdom was nominated twice for the most anticipated game in the Game Awards for 2020, 2021, and won that award in 2022. Many people were anxious to play this game, and many actually could not wait. As a matter of fact, there was this one guy that tweeted saying that he got the game early And the president of Nintendo America, Reggie, you know, the literal funny meme guy, that he kind of made a threat that sounded jokingly, but then 24 hours later, the guy who tweeted that he got the game early account got taken down. So I think it's safe to say that Nintendo's assassins got my man. But to really sum this up, everyone is just finally happy that there's a new top dog Zelda game that is out and available to play. Now, I'm not going to say that this game is the best game, seeing how it's basically just Breath of the Wild just upgraded both in story and gameplay mechanics. I mean, there's crafting now, which is pretty cool. Also, Ganondorf is back, which is pretty cool. I mean, I called this shit a long time ago. Even if you don't know or play Zelda games, you definitely know who Ganondorf is. He's basically like the big bad of Zelda games. Also, he's in Smash, so you know, kind of tells you that he's a pretty impactful villain. Also, it's been like, what, 24 hours since this game dropped and I'm recording this, and people are already simping over him as sexy Ganondorf, which, you know, they're not wrong. I mean, he went from this ugly mug and turned into this guy. The story for this game is actually really good. It takes place a while after the events of Breath of the Wild, where Link and Zelda are venturing under Hyrule Castle. They learn a bit about the history of how Hyrule was created, and then they find this mummy-like body with a bright blue hand atop of it. The mummy awakes, illuminating this dark red energy that destroys Link's arm along with destroying Link's Master Sword, and essentially destroys the cave that they're all in. Zelda ends up vanishing, Link gets a cool new arm, and everything's in the sky now, so you know, that's pretty crazy. The game does this thing that was similar in Breath of the Wild where they show memories of the past, except in Tears of the Kingdom, we're seeing things from Zelda's perspective, seeing how she actually got taken to the past around the time of the Kingdom of Hyrule's founding. And from time to time, we'll see her side of things. And I kind of like that, seeing how instead of just getting regular flashbacks, we see that Zelda plays a pretty big part within this game. Another thing that I really like is how they reintroduce Ganondorf in the Breath of the Wild world. Like I said before, we kind of see things in two perspectives, one with Link in the present time, and then there's Zelda with her being in the past. We sort of see two different versions of Ganondorf, one with him trying to gain the power that he lost, and how he ended up looking like a piece of shit. The two versions of him, one during the present time and one in the past, are very different, with the past version of him giving a more chilling vibe along with having a more wise sense of things, and his past version of him being more smug and cocky. This really shows a bit of character development that I wish was used more for video game villains, showing what they were like when they lost the first time to when they're trying to win a second time, only more beaten down after losing the first time, seeing how, let's face it, no one wants to lose the first time. Okay, that sentence kind of confused me, but you get my point. The stylized beauty of the world is just as amazing as Breath of the Wild was, with the use of lighting and shadow to make things look neater. And just the music. The music is one of the greatest underrated things of Zelda. I'm not a big music person unless it comes from media that I like anime or in this case video games. And the music fits perfectly with the theme of the game. I mean, that saxophone went fucking crazy. Now, gameplay mechanics wise, it's pretty fun. Like I said before, Tears of the Kingdom is basically just Breath of the Wild, just tiered up a bit. Other than the fact that a lot of the stuff is in the sky, gameplay wise, the things that are new is the rail grinding, which is basically you grinding a rail, and not in a sexual way. There's also crafting, which is a pretty cool feature. The mechanic stuff you collect from enemies or chests can be used to actually create transport vehicles like cars and boats and mechs, along with some other stuff as well. These type of transportations is definitely a one-up from just using a regular ass horse. There's also new enemies along with new ways to sort of buff up your weapons and you. Honestly, if I had to give this game an honest review as someone who's played Breath of the Wild, I'll give it somewhere on the line of a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10 when it comes to gameplay, seeing how a lot of the stuff is just really similar to Breath of the Wild, but story wise this game is a good 9 out of 10 because honestly, the story is just amazing and it's probably the best aspect of the game. But yeah, if you're someone that's looking to pull out your Switch after a while to play a new game, I definitely recommend this one because let's face it, what else are you going to play that's good that you haven't played already? It seems when it comes down to Legend of Zelda games, they sort of lived up to their expectations. Hope you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye bye.